and Nintendo this week. Another surprise announcement. They unveiled the new Hyrule Warriors sequel for the Switch, which is also a story prequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So it's called Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. It's releasing the 20th of November, which it seems to be. And, you know, some people are talking about that there might be another Nintendo Direct, but to me, this seems like this is going to be Nintendo's November game, which, you know, given that they released Super Mario 3D All-Stars in September, they could have done that in November. Feels like this game is the November game for Nintendo. And it's developed, again, by Koei Tecmo. I actually did a real quick deep dive a few days ago on the Dynasty Warriors series. And I never knew that...
The Musou games.
Well, yeah, but I never knew that the first game was a fighting game. It wasn't a crowd hack and slash. It was literally like a kind of like a Tekken or a you know, Soul Calibur style game. And then the second game was more like what the games became. And the cool thing about this for, you know, fans of Breath of the Wild, which is one of us, that this game is actually set 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild. So that game is constantly referring back to those 100 years and all the things that have happened. And that's actually the setting of this game. It features 2-player co-op, and you get to play as the champions as well. So the 4 champions in Breath of the Wild, as they're referred to, from the 100 years prior. And yeah, just like looks like such a cool game. Like, I've played a little bit of the Warriors game. So I've played Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U. And I actually really liked it. I was really close to getting it on the Switch. And unfortunately, it's really hard to get it on the Switch unless you get it digitally now. So it's kind of like turned me off because I was looking for a physical copy of it, but it's just kind of like not available. But yeah, like what did you think about this game?
Look, this is a really smart move by everyone involved. It not only, I guess, kind of sates people appetite a little bit for, you know, the whole Breath of the Wild sequel. It kind of fills the gap nicely there. It also obviously provides them a holiday title, which outside of the Mario All Stars compilation, they didn't really have you know, a big new title to kind of push for the holidays that I can think of off the top of my head. It does look very nice. I've always been very interested in the Warriors games. I did play, the first one I played was Dynasty Warriors 2 on the PlayStation 2, and I just remember it kind of blew my mind at the time, just seeing how many enemies there were, and, you know, just like you're killing hundreds of enemies within like a minute and stuff like that. It's pretty crazy. And then they just went absolutely crazy with that series. You know, the Gundam, Fist of the North Star. Like there's
all the spin-offs.
Oh, well, it's just there's so many of them. It's just insane. The Samurai
because there's so many
Warriors and
Dynasty Warrior games. They're up to like Dynasty Warriors 9.
Yeah, and then you got the Samurai Warriors games and the ones where they combine the two, and then, you know, I think, you know, I think for people that love those games, this is awesome news, and it's probably, I reckon it will actually get a lot of people into the series because while there obviously were the Hyrule Warriors games, I think the fact that this is Breath of the Wild is going to really get people probably to bite more than they probably ever would have. I kind of like the fact that it's very focused on a specific, you know, Zelda world. Although I do like the idea of the other Hyrule Warriors games having like Gant and Tingle and all these crazy characters in them. But it's, I don't know. Obviously, they've been working on this for a while because it's due for release pretty soon. It's kind of crazy this didn't get leaked in any way that I could remember. It was just it
definitely didn't get leaked. There wasn't even a murmuring of this game.
Yeah, it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, because normally you'd even get, you know, that one person on 4chan or Twitter or something going, hey, they're releasing a prequel. It's going to be, you know, using the Dynasty Warriors engine, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, oh, who are you, Twitter egg? But yeah, this one, like, there's nothing you can point back to. Nothing on Reset Era or anything like that to sort of go, yep, someone had picked this. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I love Breath of the Wild so much, and I think there's one thing that we've got to be conscious of, that even a company as old as Nintendo, they're using a lot of the data and the analytics that they get from their games. So all of the publishers and all of the major platforms, They, like the reality is they understand exactly how much you're playing, when you jump in, how quickly you jump out, and they even mentioned it in this, release, that they thanked the players because they said that there's still a significant amount of people that are playing Breath of the Wild. So, and you see this with games like Skyrim, where Bethesda have said, there's millions of people that play Skyrim even today. So for them, I think you're right. Like, and, this might have taken 18 months to make this game. I don't know. Because the whole engine, they already have it. Because they released the definitive edition of Hyrule Warriors on the Switch. So they'd have that game, and I wouldn't expect it to be upgraded from an engine point of view. And they just really got to get the assets and the setting and everything like that in this game. So, I really feel like that this could have been like 2 years max to make this game. So given the success of Breath of the Wild, it's such a smart decision because honestly, Fire Emblem, now I've become a big fan of that series. And, even with the Hyrule Warriors, the first game, I was close to getting those games, but given how much I love Breath of the Wild and that it does actually have the story, and there's elements that we haven't seen of the story that it's very clear that it will be in this game. And I look at this as a story prequel. I don't look at it as an actual prequel to Breath of the Wild, even though I think they're positioning it as that. I'll probably get to pull the trigger and get this game. And I actually am looking forward to playing it. And then again, it's probably going to get me to go back to the Wii U and play Hyrule Warriors on that. So, yeah, no, really, really cool. And, the other thing that we should point out, and I actually think this is big news, just given that Breath of the Wild came out in March 2017, and I think by all reports it was finished well before then, and they were delaying until the Switch launched to actually launch the game. It seems like the actual, Breath of the Wild 2 is taking a lot longer than they expected to make. Because I was kind of almost expecting it might be releasing early next year, or even optimistically this year as their big November game. But just given the update that they gave, and they sort of said it's taking longer to sort of, match the first game, and that there'll be more news about it later, I almost can't even see it as being a 2021 game. Like, did you have a gut feel on that, or are you just not sure?
I'm not sure. I just hope in that amount of time they've managed to fix the frame rate.
Well, and how I hate rumors. Now, and I wouldn't classify this as a rumor because it is coming from Bloomberg. But, Bloomberg have been wrong many, many times. Bloomberg came out and said that, there would be a, Metroid Prime trilogy re-release on the Switch. They've said a lot of things. They said there's going to be a new Switch this year, which never happened. But, they do have a lot of industry sources in Asia, and, they're reporting that, that Nintendo are actually talking to publishers and developers around preparing for a 4K Switch, which I just don't get. Like, I don't know how that would be possible unless it's 4K only on the docked version, and there's some actual sort of graphics inside of the dock as well. So, you know what? Like, honestly, I'd be all up for them releasing a revised Switch that, you have, Breath of the Wild 2, and it's running at like at least a locked 30 frames a second on that. And I'd happily upgrade to that if they could get there. Because, I think you're right. That's probably the one downfall to Breath of the Wild for me, that, I've played hundreds of hours of that game, and man, it does get choppy at times. It does get choppy.
Yeah, and like we've teased enough my experiences with Breath of the Wild, but the one thing that disappointed me the most in my early time with that game was Kakariko Village. And I got to
so
experience it on both the Wii U version and the Switch version, and it takes you out of it way more than any other Zelda. Like the other Zelda games, especially on 64, like didn't have great frame rates, but it was such a sudden shift because the rest of the game, like when you're just exploring the open world, it's nice. It's nice and smooth, consistent. When you enter that Kakariko Village, it's such a stark contrast, and yeah, it took me well out of it. So I'm hopeful that the sequel won't have those problems. I imagine Hyrule Warriors itself is probably a nice smooth engine on that regard as well, but I'm not sure about that. But
it runs a lot better on the Switch. It was a bit chugging on the Wii U.
Okay, yeah, and so I hope that they kind of do spend a bit of time on that to just make it a bit of a nicer experience in that regard. So
yeah, so that was definitely one of the worst parts of the game. Did you play the launch version of Breath of the Wild, or was that like kind of after they've patched it? Because they actually did patch it to improve it a bit.
So I got well, it definitely wasn't the launch version, the Switch version. So no, I think I picked up the Switch version probably about maybe 4 months after it came out.
Oh wow!
So
if you went back and played the launch version, you probably would have put it down. It was like, if I don't think it actually did, but it felt like single frames at certain times.
I played the Wii U launch version, so I imagine that would have, if not,
that was worse. Yeah.
So I got to experience that at least.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so no, smart move by Nintendo. I think very, very smart move. Definitely getting this. I'm guessing you're probably going to skip it.
I'll see. I definitely eventually I might play it, but I need to play through Breath of the Wild properly first. So, and which I still plan on doing. We need to lock in a segment. We need to lock in segments.
Can we? Maybe we can make this fun. Because I feel like that's one game you almost don't want to play, but you will play. Maybe there's a game that's the equivalent for me, like Assassin's Creed or something like that, where it's just like I would honestly never play Assassin's Creed if it wasn't you making me, or like as a trade, or I don't know, something like that.
See, if you're talking about the first one, I'd understand, but the later one's a great game. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think the thing is, I don't think there's an equivalent because you know how much I do love the Zelda series. So it's kind of like I can't think of a series that you love so much, but there's one particular game that just rubbed you the wrong way so much in that series. That you then didn't actually, you bought it twice full price. And on different consoles, and you kind of got almost the same way into it, probably about 8-10 hours into each one. But I'll refrain from sharing my thoughts on that experience right now. So,
well, the only thing I can think, because this is very infamous for me, is it's not a video game, it's a book, Lord of the Rings. Like, I would have read that book if I had, the amount of pages I've read, I would have read the book about 2 times. I've tried to start that book that series so many times. I've read, I think, the first 2 books, like the 2 Towers as well, and then stopped and then started again from the start again. Like I've tried to read it like 3 or 4 times. I don't hate it, that's the wrong way to say it. I just find it really boring, those books. And I've really tried to read them because I want to criticize them more. I want to be able to say, I've read the whole thing and it's not that good. Which is terrible.
I had the impression that you read only maybe the first 5 chapters.
No, dude.
No. Then I was going to say, and then you probably thought like Tom Bombadil was like a main character or something. The entire series.
Tom Bombadil, bro. Oh God. I don't know. It's just not my speed, that book. It's not my speed. So I'm more of a, Game of Thrones. I think I'd get into that series, like the books, more than, Lord of the Rings. It's just, anyway, we're going way off course right now.